Hey everyone, hope you're having a fantastic day. Today we're going to go over hooks in the Claude Agents SDK and what they mean. You're listening for an event, and when that event happens, Claude will take action. So I'm going to go here and share what we're going to cover. I'm going to show you an analogy of what hooks mean, why it matters, a real example. We're going to deep dive into the code, and we're going to actually go into a real life story of someone who had trouble using the Claude Agent SDK and how hooks helped. We're going to go into some good to know, then we're going to show you how to get started. Think of an airport security. We've had to use the security clearance. So this is an example of a function. This is reading a file. This would be Claude reading a file. Let's see if it passes. So it's going through and it's passed. It made through and it can execute. Let's say writing a .env file. That gets denied because there was a hook that mentioned that it was denied. Can you delete code? If there's a hook that deletes the code, then it will get denied. And then editing code. If you allow the agent to edit code, then it will be able to execute that. So why do hooks matter? Let's see the difference. So with hooks, they may ask, please don't modify M files, and they contain secrets, right? And so the agent may still overwrite N files if it misses this system prompt. However, with hooks, you can say, before the tool use has even happened, you can block all writes to M files. Before the prompt even executes, you can set things up. So this is a real example going into the code of how a pre-tool use hook can block writes to the environment file. You have someone trying to write an app.ts file. This is just a simple file. And you could see that it did go through and it worked properly. But now we said that it blocks writing to the environmental files. So you could see here, it actually says, if the file has .env, deny, cannot modify file. So let's see how it works. So it ends here and it doesn't actually make it to the return. Let's see config file. It's not an env file. Will it work? So it actually goes through and it works. Now another .env example. Let's see if it goes through. And it gets denied. So let's now go into a code deep dive of what this actually is and how it's working. So you start with the hook callback signature. So every hook has 3 arguments. You have the input, the tool use ID, and the context. And you can see here, right, we have this first line here with our input, tool use ID, and context. The next thing is accessing the tool input. So you have here the file path, and then the input, tool input, and the file path. So this is accessing it so it actually works. The next thing is the logic. So if file path ends with .env, and then what's actually going to happen. So the action. So blocking the tool, return, deny, cannot modify .env. And then return means everything else will get accepted. So let's go into a real life story. So Alex is a developer building a startup. She uses Claude to help write code faster. Her app has a .env files with API keys, database passwords, and Stripe secrets. So this could be how she accepts payments. This is extremely important. But she asked Claude to update her config file to use the new API endpoint. But Claude tries to be helpful and overwrites the M file with the template. So this is really big trouble because then Alex can no longer accept payment from customers. But when she uses hooks, she writes a pre-tool use hook to mention that the app cannot modify .env files. And now when Claude ever tries to touch the env files, it cannot because the pre-tool use hook denies it. So Alex can ship code faster with Claude, knowing that there's guardrails in place and she's safer. So now these are all the 12 hook types: pre-tool use, before the tool runs; post-tool use with failure; user prompt submit, stopping; sub-agent start, sub-agent stop; pre-compact, permission request, session start, session end, and notifications. Note that only some of these are just TypeScript, whereas some of them are Python and TypeScript. So just make sure you know that, whichever language you're using. One more good thing that's good to know is chaining hooks. So you can actually run several hooks in order. So important to know that is possible. So adding your first hook in 5 minutes. So you have to install the Anthropic Claude Agent SDK. You write your hook, and then you could pass it to the query here. This would be an example starter template that you can use. And I've also added the resources, official docs, and GitHub repo. I hope you found this valuable learning about hooks, and I hope you have a great day.